This begins lesson 8.2, part B. So let's take a look at our new equation here. We'll finish up this type of question. This is basically the end of part A. I couldn't fit it in the 15 minutes, but we'll finish this one up. But it deals with this type of question. Max or min? Well, again, I mentioned earlier, let's get in the habit of saying what A is. In this case, it's -2. B is a 4. And C is a 1. Now, what is it? Does it have a max or a min? And the part that will tell us if it's a max or min is the A. If A is less than 0, in which case it is, it'll open downward, which means your vertex will be a maximum. What are the coordinates of the vertex? Well, first of all, we need to find out what the line of symmetry is, because that'll tell us the x value. Remember, vertex is a coordinate, and the line of symmetry will be the A. So we would plug in negative b, well, b is a 4, over 2 times a, which is -2. So we get -4 over a -4, which is 1. So the line of symmetry is x equals 1, and that's our x value. Our y value is found by taking that value for x and plugging it in to the equation. So that means we will get 1 squared is 1 times -2 is -2. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1. So -2 plus 4 is 2 plus 1 is 3. And that is our y value of the coordinate. The domain and range, we said domain is all reals. The range was the equation y, and we just said if y is less than 0, it's going to be less than or equal to the y value of the vertex, in which case is 3. Okay, so let's take that idea and try and graph it. And I gave a rough graph on our last lesson, so here's where we actually do the graph based on what we find out. So the equation of the line of symmetry, in this case, again, first I'm going to say what x is, or a is, excuse me. B is 8 and C is 12. So write the equation for the line of symmetry. Line of symmetry would be x equals -b over 2 times a, which is -8 over 2, which is -4. So x equals -4. Determine the coordinate of the vertex. Okay, so we know that the vertex is a coordinate, and we know that the x is -4. So now I'm going to plug in -4 into the equation. -4 squared is a positive 16 minus 32 plus 12 equals, and this would give us a -4. So we have -4, -4 for our vertex. Max or min? Well, since A is positive, it's going to open upward, which means we have a minimum. Factor the equation and find the x-intercepts. Now this is what we did last lesson. So if I want to factor that function, x and x, we want a product of 12 and a sum of 8. So factors of 12 that give us a sum of 8 are 6 and 2. So plus and plus. Now, intercepts are when this is equal to 0. So what can I plug in here to make this a 0? -6. What do I plug in here? -2. So these two are the intercepts. It is not a coordinate. They are the places the graph will cross the x-axis. Okay, what's the y-intercept? Now, this has not been mentioned yet, but the y-intercept is the constant. In other words, if you plugged in, to find the y-intercept, you would plug a 0 in for x, which means this would cancel, and this would cancel, and you're left with 12. Nice quick thing to find. So the y-intercept is at 12. Graph the equation. So let's put on what we know. We know the line of symmetry is x equals -4. Now I'm going to do one little thing here. Because this graph is not big enough for the y-intercept, it's going to be at 12, so I'm going to go by 2's. Go by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Then everything can fit. Alright, so line of symmetry is x equals -4. So -2, -4. Here's your line of symmetry. The vertex is at -4, -4. That's the vertex. Is going to open upward. Okay, so we know that. The x-intercepts are at -6, so -2, -4, -6, and -2. That's where our line will cross our parabola will cross the x-axis. Our y-intercept is 12. And here I'm going to point out to you what line of symmetry does. Notice that these two vertices, or these two x-intercepts, are the same distance from the line of symmetry, because the line of symmetry is indeed a mirror. So if the y-intercept is 2 boxes or 4 units away from the line of symmetry, I'm going to mirror that over here. That's what the line of symmetry does. And this will represent not a... It's a very bad line, sorry. I'm going to do that again. It's not a V. It is a U. Very hard to draw here, sorry. There you go. It's supposed to go through this line right there, this dot. There you go, right through there. You'll draw a much better line than I can. Okay, so that's the parabola going through those two x-intercepts and the y-intercept. Alright, let's take a look at this. Line of symmetry. So first of all, let's do what we've done before. A is 2, B is -8, and C is 6. Equation of the line of symmetry is x equals -b over 2 times A. So 8 over 4, which reduces to 2. So our line of symmetry is x equals 2. Vertex, we know the x value. It's the line of symmetry value. Plug in 2 for x. And we get 2 squared is 4, times 2 is 8, minus 16 plus 6. And we get -2. The A is positive, which means it's going to open upward, which means we'll have a minimum. Factor and solve. Alright, so now we have a 2x squared minus 8x plus 6. And if you remember how we did this, we multiplied these two together, which means when we factor it, we're going to have a product of 12 and a sum of -8. And we factored this by grouping, if you remember, because this A is not a 1, it's a 2. So here we're saying, okay, well, 6 and 2 work, but they both have to be negative. So we're going to rewrite this as 2x squared minus 6x minus 2x plus 6. What do they have in common? 2x, factor that out, and I get x minus 3. I take a -2 out of the other part, and I get x minus 3. So they both have an x minus 3 in common. And what's left? 2x minus 1. There's 2x, and there's the 1. Oops, sorry, 2x minus 2. Pardon me. Alright, now what makes that equal to 0? This is how we find our x-intercepts. Well, this one is a 3. This one, if we're not sure, all we got to do is write it out and say, how do I make that equal 0? And then we solve. 2x equals 2, divide by 2, and x equals 1. So we have 2x intercepts at 3 and 1. And the y-intercept is the constant, because we would plug zeros in for x's and they would cancel out, so our y-intercept is 6. So let's graph everything we know. Our line of symmetry is at 2, x equals 2. I think our scale's fine on this one. Alright. Our next piece was the vertex, which is 2, negative 2. 2, negative 2. Our intercepts are 1 and 3. And these should mirror each other on the line of symmetry, and they do. Our y-intercept is 6. And that can mirror also. And again, pardon me for my drawing here, I'll do the best I can. There's that one. Ah! Terrible! Through that point, and that point. There. Sorry. It's really hard to do this with an airliner. Alright. Very good. And this then ends part B of lesson 8.2.